Hello, Tony here, back on my channel once more with another deck profile. Now as we wait for more sets to drop and new support to enter the game to change up the stale metagame, the deck profile that I am going to be focusing on this week is going to be one of the fan favorites to come out of the dual terminal storyline. That being the famous, and for some people infamous, Nekroz archetype. Now who are the Nekroz? The Nekroz are a ritual-based archetype consisting of 4 characters clad in armor based off of some of the most famous monsters to ever come out of the dual terminal storyline. They debuted all the way back in Secret Forces and were one of the top 6 decks in the Duelist Alliance meta. And like Megaliths after it and Ishki before it, they were Konami's attempt at modernizing the ritual concept. However, unlike Megalith, which focused on not having a ritual spell, and Gishki, which attempted to solve the ritual problem by always having ritual capabilities, Nekroz attempted to modernize the ritual problem by making it such that every card in the deck had a use regardless of if you could ritual summon or not. Through this mindset, the resulting deck was one that had unparalleled consistency for its time and employed an anti-X deck strategy to counter some of the most popular playstyles of the Duelist Alliance era. And while the times have changed since then, and some of the Nekroz cards have definitely been power creeped, that doesn't mean that Nekroz doesn't have a place in the current metagame either. Regardless of the times, extra deck spam is extra deck spam, and whenever an extra deck spam deck like Dragon Link takes prevalence, there is always an opportunity for Nekroz with its anti-extra deck strategies to shine. Due to being blessed with consistency well ahead of its time, Nekroz is capable of putting up simple but powerful control boards capable of countering some of the most modern strategies of our current time. And thanks to new traps and spell cards being released every day, the consistency of this deck has only increased in doing what it intends to do, something that I hope to showcase as I get through the deck profile. Anyway, I've droned on enough. Without further ado, let's get into the deck profile. Starting off our deck profile with the core consistency of our Nekroz monsters, we have our 3 Nekroz of Brionac as well as our 2 Nekroz of Clausolus. Due to Konami never wanting any of the Nekroz cards to be dead at any situation, each of these Nekroz ritual monsters has an effect on field as well as an effect that can activate in hand. Nekroz of Brionac's hand effect lets you discard this card to add any other Nekroz monster from your deck to the hand, while Clausolus inversely allows you to discard this card to add any Nekroz spell or trap from your deck to the hand. On the field, however, Nekroz of Brionac can target 2 monsters summoned from the extra deck and return them to the extra deck, while Clausolus, as a quick effect, can target 1 extra deck monster, reduce its attack to 0, and negate its effects until the end of the turn. Due to their in-hand search effects, you'll commonly find yourself discarding Nekroz of Brionac or Clausolus more than you'll actually be summoning them onto the field. Regardless, the ability to search for any Nekroz monster or any Nekroz spell or trap card without actually having to commit them onto the field is a great boon for the deck. Through a combination of any of these 2 cards, you're able to grab any Nekroz ritual spell and any Nekroz monster for any Nekroz ritual play of your choice. And thanks to the fact that they're level 7 or lower ritual monsters who are both warriors, they take advantage of outside support cards like Preparation of Rites or Reinforcement of the Army to maximize this deck's consistency. But that doesn't mean that their on-field effects are any slouch either. Nekroz of Brionac's effect to bounce back 2 extra deck monsters to the extra deck is essentially a -2 for your opponent at no cost to you. Meanwhile, Clausolus' effect, being a quick effect that not only modulates attack but also negates effects, makes it a useful disruption on either player's turn, or at worst, a damage deck battle trick that can get over monsters, making both these cards useful effects regardless of whether they're in the hand or on the field. Now, in terms of ratios though, you do want to be playing only the 2 Nekroz of Clausolus but the maxed out copies of Nekroz of Brionac. The reason for this is because there's actually not a lot of spells or traps that you can grab through your Nekroz of Clausolus outside of the few ritual spells that you are playing. However, Nekroz of Brionac can grab any other Nekroz monsters, all of them with effects in hand, to trigger those instead, including your Nekroz of Clausolus if needed be. This essentially makes Nekroz of Brionac any other Nekroz hand effect of your choice, making it much more important than the Nekroz of Clausolus, which is only a few effects of your choice. Moving on to the real meat of the deck, we also have our 3 Nekroz of Unicorn. Now, Nekroz of Unicorn's in-hand effect lets you send this card from your hand to the graveyard to add any other Nekroz card from your graveyard to your hand. But more importantly though is its on-field effect. While on the field, it negates the effects of all other monsters summoned from the X deck, acting as a skill drain for all X deck monsters. Coming in at a hefty 2300 attack and with an effect that some decks just auto lose to, Nekroz of Unicorn is the win condition for the Nekroz strategy. There is a good chunk of decks in the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Metagame that utilize extra deck monsters to make bigger extra deck monsters, and Unicorn essentially denies those effects, making it very hard for those decks to be able to summon a monster that can actually surmount Nekroz of Unicorn. This combined with the fact that it's a level 4, meaning that it can be searched with preparation of rites, it can be easy ritual summon as your first ritual play of your game to essentially just auto win against a certain number of matchups. Now, in those cases where Nekroz of Unicorn's skill drain effect becomes useless, that doesn't mean that it's quite useless for the deck either. Nekroz of Unicorn's in-hand effect to add back any other Nekroz card from your graveyard to your hand is a great boon for this deck, acting as free recursion for any other Nekroz card that you've already used, most of which you might have discarded for their effects as well. This means that Unicorn essentially acts as any other Nekroz card that you already have in the graveyard, allowing you to actually play less of certain Nekroz cards that you might actually be a little more bricky. Moving on to the bigger Nekroz monsters, we start off with our two Necrozovachrus. Now, all the bigger Nekroz monsters have effects that are focused around protecting your other Nekroz monsters. Necrozovachrus allows you to discard this card from your hand whenever your opponent declares an attack, and banish another Nekroz card to negate that attack and end the battle phase. Furthermore, Necrozovachrus' on-field effect lets you tribute up to 2 monsters on the field or in your hand as part of its effect, to then draw the same number of cards from your deck. Even without its on-field draw effect, Necrozovachrus being at 2900 makes it a suitable beater for you to sometimes end the game with. But with the draw effect, it essentially allows you to trade some of your dead Nekroz cards or dead monsters on the field, such as your Monjus, for additional advantage to then continue your plays with. But what's more important about this card is definitely its in-hand effect. The ability to discard itself to not only stop one attack, but to stop all attacks by ending the battle phase is a great way to protect your Unicorn against some of your bigger monsters. And fortunately, thanks to some of the ritual spells, even when it's discarded, there are ways to summon it back onto the field to then beat down your opponent with on that following turn. Finally, rounding off the Nekroz ritual monsters, we're playing the one Nekroz of Decisive Armor. Coming in at 3300 attack, Nekroz of Decisive Armor allows you to target any set card on the field and destroy it, and if you do, banish that card. Furthermore, in the hand, Nekroz of Decisive Armor can be discarded on either player's turn to increase the attack of one of your Nekroz monsters by 1000 attack. At 3300 attack, Decisive Armor is your largest Nekroz monster, and something that you tend to summon when you need to get over some of those really big threats. But the fact that it does have an effect to target set cards, destroying them and banishing them, makes this also a really good card against set decks or trap decks as well. Furthermore, the effect to discard itself to increase one of your Nekroz monsters by 1000 attack also serves as another way to protect your Unicorn, but also allow your Unicorn to get over some of those bigger monsters without having to end the battle phase with something like Valkyris. Now, for the veteran Nekroz players out there, you may be wondering, why aren't I playing something like Necrozovachrus? And the reason for that is because, well, I don't think it's that good in the current metagame. In the Duelist Alliance era, being able to banish one from your hand, field, and grave may have been very powerful, but in the current metagame, it just simply doesn't do enough. If you're playing against a deck that spams out multiple monsters, banishing one of the 5 monsters your opponent has on the field really doesn't do a lot, especially since all those other monsters may already be bigger than Necrozovachrus's measly 2700 attack. Furthermore, while you can banish something from graveyard, most decks are adept at this point of putting the same monster in the graveyard anyway, meaning that in most cases, banishing one only delays the inevitable. And banishing one from hand may be powerful sometimes, but you can't do it on your turn 1, and in most cases, at any point, most of your opponent's cards are playable in any situation, meaning that banishing any card from your opponent's hand really doesn't do a lot either. And while the effect to protect from targeting may be really powerful, in the current metagame, there is actually a lot of effects that no longer target either, making Necrozovachrus only good when I know I'm up against a deck that actually targets. Thus, this is a card I'd rather keep in the side deck than in the main deck due to the fact that as a level 9, it can be rather bricky. With that explanation out of the way, we move back into the main deck with the only non-ritual Nekroz monster in our one Chariot Strategist of the Nekroz. Chariot is a level 3 warrior monster that has 2 useful effects. First off, it can be substituted as the entire tribute for any Nekroz ritual summon, making it useful to summon any Nekroz ritual monster. More importantly though, should it be tributed, you can add any warrior Nekroz monster from your deck to your hand. Now, in the context of a Nekroz deck, Chariot is incredibly powerful. The ability to substitute itself as the entire tribute for any Nekroz ritual monster is incredibly useful, especially since all the upcoming Nekroz ritual spells utilize exact levels to ritual summon out your Nekroz monsters, meaning that with Chariot, you can essentially avoid all the pesky math and the problems of amassing proper levels and summon out any Nekroz ritual monster of your choice. Furthermore, when you do tribute it for that ritual summon, it does allow you to then grab any Necroz warrior monster, which conveniently is your Necrozovachrus and your Necrozovachrus, essentially allow you to grab any other searcher for any follow play that you have in mind. Going into our non-Necroz monsters, we start off with our 3 Manju of the 10,000 hands. Manju, when no more flip summon, allows you to add any ritual monster or ritual spell from the deck to the hand, which not only can grab things like your Brionac or Clawsolus to grab other things, but also allows you to grab your Necroz ritual spells as well. Furthermore, one of the additional benefits of Manju is that it's a level 4, meaning that in the case of using your Necroz ritual spells, it is exactly the required levels to summon out your Necroz of Unicorn as well. Meaning that in a lot of situations, you could use Manju to search out your Unicorn and then immediately use that Manju to summon out the Unicorn to start locking down your opponent with. Moving on from there, we're playing the 1 Dogmatic Ecclesia. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, no, I am not playing the Dear Servant. The reason Ecclesia is in this deck is to facilitate something I call the Punishment Loop. The idea with the Punishment Loop is that you can activate Punishment to send a Titanclad from your X deck to the graveyard, not only destroying one of your cards, but on the end phase triggering Titanclad to summon out your Ecclesia. From your Ecclesia will trigger, allowing you to grab a second Punishment, thus providing you a continuous stream of disruption on your opponent's turn to protect something like your Unicorn. Furthermore, it's also convenient that, at least in this case, Ecclesia is a level 4, meaning that like Manju, it serves as the exact level requirements to summon out a Unicorn as well. Finally, rounding off the monsters with our hand traps, we're playing the Psyframe Gear Gamma package. Now, in most situations going first or in any other play, the only summon that you'll be doing is most likely your Unicorn or your Manju, and as a result of that, anything before that you'll probably be just activating a lot of Necroz search effects to get into those right cards to summon out that Unicorn. Resultingly, you'll most likely not control any monsters up until that point, which means that when your opponent attempts to hand trap any of your Necroz searches, you can activate Gamma to negate that effect to ensure that you get the right cards in play. Furthermore, what's nice about the Gamma package is that since Gamma summons out a driver, it puts 2 monsters on the field which conveniently can be tributed for your Necrozovachrus, not only netting you 2 cards, but putting the driver into the graveyard, allowing you to summon it out later with another Gamma as well. Moving on into the spells, we start off with the most unique of the Necroz ritual spells in our 2 Necroz Kaleidoscope. Now, Kaleidoscope allows you to summon any number of Necroz ritual monsters so long that you send 1 monster from your X deck whose level exactly equals the total level of the Necroz ritual monsters that you're attempting to summon. Furthermore, with all the Necroz ritual spells, they have an effect in graveyard where if you control no monsters, you can banish a Necroz ritual spell from your graveyard alongside a Necroz monster to add any other Necroz ritual spell from your deck to your hand. Looking at all of its effects, it's very clear that Necroz Kaleidoscope is a very powerful card, but from it also a very skillful one as well. Being able to ritual summon multiple Necroz ritual monsters from your hand is a very easy way to spam the field, especially since you're sending a monster from the X deck, thus making this entire play pretty much free. However, depending on what your opponent has and what you have in your X deck and hand, you do want to be very choosy at what you send, especially since this card does give you a lot of options. For example, should I send a level 12 monster for Kaleidoscope, I have a majority of cool plays I can do. I can obviously summon out a Necrozovachrus and a Necroz of Unicorn for a basic beatdown and negation play, or I can also potentially summon out 2 Necroz of Brionac, not only giving me double bounce, but the ability to make a rank 6 play as well. Or if I'm going first and I do have the opportunity, I can also summon out 3 Necroz of Unicorn, forcing my opponent to get out all 3 Unicorn to use their X deck effects. Regardless, the sky is the limit with this card, and it's going to come down to how you want to build your board in which you utilize Necroz of Kaleidoscope in its fullest. However, there's more to Necroz Kaleidoscope than just summoning out a multitude of ritual monsters. Thanks to the fact that there is a number of extract monsters that do have float effects when they're sent to the graveyard, Kaleidoscope is also another way to trigger additional effects by sending specific extract monsters from the graveyard, most of which related to Necroz of Unicorn. See, Unicorn being a level 4 gives you a few options. Not only can I send a Herald of Archetype directly to summon out the Unicorn, thus netting me a search for any other Necroz ritual monster, it also allows me to send something like Elder Entity Entis to pop a card, or if I have 2 Unicorn in my hand, I can send a Titanclad from my deck to the graveyard to summon out both Unicorn, not only allowing me to grab the Ecclesia to grab my next play, but also summoning out 2 Unicorn to double down on the negation. And that's not even mentioning Necroz Kaleidoscope's graveyard effect as well. While it does share this effect alongside the other Necroz ritual spells, the ability to banish itself and any other Necroz monster to search for any other Necroz ritual spell not only gives you the variability of utilizing any of the spells at any point that you have no monsters, but also allows you to conserve resources in searching for those Necroz ritual spells, thus allowing you to focus more on getting the right ritual monsters to break your opponent's board. As a result of that, this card gives you a number of different flexibilities which makes your deck very powerful in any number of situations, whether it be in the grave or in your hand. Moving on to our next Necroz ritual spell, we're playing the 1 Necroz Mirror. Necroz Mirror allows you to summon out a Necroz ritual monster from your hand by trading monsters from your hand, field, or by banishing monsters from your graveyard, such that their levels equal exactly the level of the Necroz ritual monster you're attempting to summon. And like Necroz Kaleidoscope, it can be banished from the graveyard alongside another Necroz monster while you control those monsters to add another Necroz ritual spell from your deck to your hand. While nowhere near as flexible or free compared to Necroz Kaleidoscope, Necroz Mirror supplements that by providing your Necroz monsters in your graveyard another use. Given how often you'll be sending Necroz monsters from your hand to the graveyard to activate their in-hand effects, it's very easy to load up your graveyard with a bunch of different Necroz monsters for a late game ritual summon through Necroz Mirror. This is especially useful compared to Kaleidoscope, given your larger monsters like your Valkyries and your Decisive arm cannot be ritual summoned by using just a level 10 or a level 8 monster respectively, meaning that in most cases using the Necroz Mirror, this is one of the easiest ways to summon just one of those monsters out to beat your opponent down with. Furthermore, it's also important to note that you can also directly banish a Chariot from the graveyard as an entire tribute that way as well, thus giving Chariot 2 usages for its full tribute effect that way too. Wrapping up the Necroz cards with the last of our Necroz ritual spells, we have the 1 Necroz Cycle. Now for most parts, Necroz Cycle behaves like a conventional ritual spell. By tributing monsters from your hand or field, you can summon out a Necroz ritual monster whose level is equal to the total level of the monsters tributed. And like Mirror and Kaleidoscope, Necroz Cycle can banish itself from the graveyard alongside a Necroz monster while you control no monsters to add another Necroz spell card from the deck to the hand. What makes Cycle unique, however, is that the monster you summon off of Cycle doesn't necessarily have to come from the hand. It can come from the graveyard instead. Now, if Necroz Mirror lets you simplify the ritual summoning process by disregarding the need to have ritual fodder in hand, Necroz Cycle does quite the opposite, instead letting you ritual summon without a Necroz ritual monster in hand due to the fact that it could ritual summon from the graveyard instead. And being able to bring back any Necroz ritual monster from the graveyard is extremely powerful, especially since all the Necroz ritual monsters cannot be special summoned outside of being ritual summoned, which means that once they hit the field upon being destroyed or sent to the graveyard for their in-hand effects, there's actually no way to put them back on the field outside of Necroz Cycle's effects. And in most cases, you'll be using Necroz Cycle to bring back a Unicorn that's been destroyed, but in other cases, you can use a Chariot alongside your Necroz Cycle to bring back a Decisive armor or Valkyries that you may have used to protect your Unicorn, not only allowing you to save that Unicorn in that play, but allowing you to summon out one of the bigger beaters to continue building your board with. Wrapping up the spells, we play a number of consistency cards designed to grab ritual monsters or ritual spells that we may need in any situation. We're playing the 3 Preparation of Rites, which not only can search our Brionac, our Clausulus, and our Unicorn, but can also add back ritual spells from our graveyard. We're playing the 1 Reinforcement of Army, which can not only search out our Clausulus, but also our Chariot as well as our 3 Pot of Prosperity, which lets us dig 6 cards deep for that right ritual monster that we need. Moving on into the traps, we're playing a number of traps designed not only to protect something like our Unicorn from being destroyed by battle, but to also remove bigger threats than our Unicorn that may threaten him in the long term. Starting off, we have our 3 Dogmatic Punishment for our punishment loop, not only allowing us to send things like Clad to summon out Ecclesia, but against smaller monsters also send something like a Herald of Archetype to get searches. We're playing the 3 Ice Dragon Prison as a means to destroy decks like Eldritch, but to also ruin any other tribal decks in the current game. We're playing 2 Lost Wind as a means of effect negation, but also for that attack decreasing effect, which allows our Necroz ritual monsters to run over bigger monsters. We're playing 3 Infinite Impermanence as the quintessential hand trap of the current format, as well as 2 Trap Trick to grab any of these other normal traps that we've just described for any situation that we may need it. Moving on into the extra deck is actually segmented into 2 parts. First of which is the cards that we'll be sending off of something like our Kaleidoscope or Dogmatic Punishment to gain advantage, and the second being extra deck monsters that we'll actually make. Starting off with the cards that we're sending, we're playing the 1 Barren Blossom to send off our punishment to cycle a card. Likewise, we're playing the 1 Clad for similar reasons, but we can also send Clad off of our Kaleidoscope to summon out double Unicorn. To summon out Unicorn, we can also dump an Entis to pop a card, as well as one of our 3 Herald of Arclights for the searches. From there, to summon out our other Nekroz ritual monsters using Kaleidoscope, we're playing the 1 Brionac to summon out the Nekroz of Brionac, the 1 Trishla to summon out a Nekroz of Brionac alongside a Nekroz of Clausolus, the 1 Ascension Side Dragon to summon out any level 6 plus 4, a Trishla the 0 Dragon to summon out any 11 combination, as well as our level 12 in our Hot Red Dragon Calamity. Now, Calamity being 4,000 attack also has the additional usage in that you can send it with punishment to destroy one of your opponent's bigger monsters. Moving on to the extract monster that we actually make, we're playing the 1 Exciton Knight as a field nuke that we can make using a Manju and a Necroz Unicorn. We're playing the Abyss Dweller for the exact same reason, as well as an M7 to overlay double Brionac with, and since we have Exceeds that might battle, we can then overlay this to summon out our Sky Thunder Zeus as well. And that's going to do it for our Necroz deck profile. Now, there's actually 2 reasons why I decided to do Necroz for this week's deck profile. The first of which is because I saw a lot of potential in Necroz this format. In a format consisting of Dragon, Link, Bird, Up, and Zoo, Necroz or Unicorn is one of those cards that can absolutely destroy those kind of decks, and it provides you a lot of easy wins. And in the right hands, I think this deck can actually do really well in top tables. The other reason is because Necroz are actually getting a lot of interesting support in the coming few sets. In Ghost of the Past, we are getting a new Necroz ritual monster that actually provides negation for the deck, and in Lightning Overdrive, we're getting Herald of the Diviner, another way to send Herald of Arclight from the X deck to the graveyard to allow us to search our Necroz ritual monsters, both of which can change how the deck will function. As such, I want to do this deck profile now to show you what the deck was before all that support, and then when I do get the new support, I do want to show you this deck profile again to show you how it changes. Regardless, my name is Tony Yang, this has been a Necroz deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.